The fall, the clock in room 312 glowed faintly in the dim light. The only sound, the steady beep of the heart monitor. Lillian Hayes adjusted the foredrip, her fingers brushing against the cold metal. She had worked the night shift at St. Mary's Hospital for 3 years, but this patient was different. Adrian Kane. The name had been splashed across business magazines for a decade. Brilliant. Untouchable. Now he lay motionless, his strong frame reduced to stillness by a drunk driver's mistake. "You're lucky to be alive," she murmured, tucking the blanket around him. His dark hair was longer now, curling slightly at the ends. She wondered if he would hate that when he woke up. If he woke up, Lillian wasn't supposed to get attached. Nurses weren't supposed to sit by comatose patients after their shifts ended, reading to them, talking to them as if they could hear. But something about Adrian pulled at her. Maybe it was the way his hands sometimes twitched when she spoke, as if fighting to respond. "Today was long," she said softly, settling into the chair beside him. Mr. Collins in room 304 finally went. "Home? You'd like him stubborn as hell? Just like you?" She smiled faintly, opening the book in her lap. "I thought we'd try some poetry tonight," she read quietly, her voice weaving through the sterile air. She didn't know if he could hear her, but she hoped. Flashback, 6 months earlier Adrian Kane stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, staring down at the city below. His reflection was sharp, crisp suit, cold eyes. Success had been his only companion for years. "You're late," he said without turning. Valerie strolled in, her designer heels clicking against the marble. "You're always working. I got bored." Didn't answer. Their engagement had been a business arrangement, a merger of power and influence. Love had never been part of the deal. "The board meeting is tomorrow," she said, pouring herself a drink. "You'll announce the restructuring?" "Yes," she smirked. "Good. We'll finally be rid of the dead weight." He didn't tell her he'd changed. His mind, that he'd seen the reports, families destroyed by his layoffs, it didn't matter. Business was business. Present day Lillian's fingers brushed Adrian's as she turned the page. His skin was warm, alive. "You're not alone," she whispered. "I promise." She didn't know then that her words would be the thread pulling him back from the darkness. The beeping of the heart monitor was the first thing Adrian became aware of, steady, insistent, like a distant drum. Then came the pain, a dull throb radiating from his skull down to his ribs. His throat was dry, his lips cracked. He tried to speak, but only a hoarse whisper escaped. Light, too bright. He flinched, squeezing his eyes shut again, a soft gasp. Then a voice, warm, familiar though he couldn't place it. Adrian, his name. He knew that voice. It had been with him in the dark, a lifeline he clung to when the nightmares threatened to drown him. He forced his eyes open. Blinking against the glare, a woman leaned over him, her brown eyes wide with shock. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, strands escaping around her face. She wore scrubs, a stethoscope draped around her neck. A nurse. Lillian. The name surfaced in his mind before he could question it. He knew her. "You," his voice was rough, unused. "You're real." Her breath hitched. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly, slipping into professional mode. "Welcome back, Mr. Kane. You've been asleep for a long time. 18 months. That's what the doctors told him."
Oh.
18 months in a coma, his body surviving, but his mind trapped in shadows. And through it all, her Lillian Hayes. The nurse who had read to him, talked to him, stayed when everyone else had left. The first days awake, Adrian's recovery was slow. His muscles had atrophied, his coordination shot. Physical therapy was agony, but he gritted his teeth through every session. He had always been a man who refused to lose, and Lillian was there, steady and patient, adjusting his the fourth, helping him sit up, her touch gentle but firm. "You're pushing too hard," she chided one afternoon as he struggled to stand, his legs shaking. "Don't have time to waste," he snapped. She didn't flinch. "Won't walk again if you tear your muscles. Slow down." He hated being told what to do, but something in her tone, not pity, but quiet understanding, made him listen. That night, when the hospital was silent, he asked the question that had been burning in his mind. Why did you stay? Lillian paused in the doorway, her back to him. It's my job, bullshit. His voice was low. You read to me? Every night, you told me about your life. It's not in any nursing manual. She turned, her expression unreadable. Maybe I just didn't want you to be alone. Something twisted. In his chest, he had spent his entire life building walls, keeping people at a distance. And yet this woman, this stranger, had seen him at his most. Vulnerable and stayed. Valerie's return, the door swung open without warning. Adrian. Valerie stood there, flawless as ever in a tailored suit, her blonde hair sleek, her red lips curved in a practiced smile. His stomach dropped. I came as soon as I heard. She strode forward, but her gaze flicked to Lillian, dismissing her instantly. You can go now. Lillian stiffened, but nodded, moving toward the door. Wait. Adrian's voice stopped her. He didn't know why. He just knew he didn't want her to leave. Valerie's smile tightened. We have business to discuss, darling. Lillian met his eyes briefly before slipping out. Valerie wasted no time. The board is nervous. They think you're not fit to lead yet. Adrian clenched his jaw. I'll be back on my feet soon. They need reassurance. She leaned in, her perfume cloying. I've been handling things while you were indisposed. If we present a united front, they'll listen. He knew what she was offering. Same deal as before. Power, control, a cold alliance. But for the first time, didn't sound like victory. A moment of truth later, when Valerie was gone, Lillian returned to check his vitals. She was quiet, her movements efficient. Adrian watched her. You don't like her? Lillian's hands stilled. It's not my place to like or dislike your fiancé. Ex-fiancé, he corrected. She ended it when I was in the coma. Lillian's gaze flicked up, surprised. I heard things, he admitted quietly. Voices, yours, hers, the doctor's. Couldn't respond, but I heard. Her breath caught. You remember? Fragments, but yours. He hesitated. Yours were clear. She looked away, but not before he saw the flush on her cheeks. He reached out, his fingers brushing hers. Thank you for staying. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then the door opened and the moment shattered. A doctor entered, clipboard in hand. Mr. Kane, we need to discuss your rehabilitation plan. Lillian stepped back, slipping into the hallway. But Adrian's eyes followed her until she disappeared. The hospital room felt colder after Valerie left. Adrian stared at the door, his fingers gripping the sheets. He had spent years building an empire on logic, on ruthless decisions, but now for the first time, something primal stirred in him. Distrust. Lillian returned quietly, her footsteps soft against the linoleum. She didn't meet his eyes as she checked his. You should rest, she said. I need my phone. Her brow furrowed. The doctor said now, Lillian. She hesitated, then pulled his phone from the drawer and handed it to him. He scrolled through months of missed messages, his stomach tightening. Board meetings he hadn't attended, deals he hadn't approved. All under Valerie's name. A knock at the door. Oliver Bennett, his oldest friend and company lawyer, stepped inside, his usual easy smile absent. Damn, it's good to see you awake, Oliver said, but his voice was strained. Adrian cut straight to it. What's Valerie done? Oliver exhaled. Running a hand through his hair. She's been restructuring, sold off 3 subsidiaries. Fired half of R&D. The board's eating it up, they think she's streamlining. Adrian's blood ran cold. Those were his projects. His life's work and the money. Oliver's jaw tightened. That's the problem. The numbers don't add up. Millions are unaccounted for. A beat of silence. Lillian shifted uncomfortably near the door. Adrian looked. At her, you should go. She nodded and turned to leave, but not before he saw the flicker of hurt in her eyes. The trapped Valerie returned the next morning. All sharp smiles and false concern. The board wants to see you, she said, perching on the edge of his bed. They need assurance you're still capable. Adrian studied her. Once, he'd admired her cunning. Now, it made his skin crawl. Funny, he said lightly. Oliver tells me. You've been making decisions without me. Her smile didn't waver. Someone had to. You were gone, Adrian. Not dead. She leaned in, her voice dropping. Here's the reality. The board won't follow a man who spent 2 years drooling on a hospital pillow. But if we stand together, if you endorse my leadership, they'll keep you on as a figurehead. He almost laughed. And why would I do that? Her nails dug into his arm. Because if you don't, I'll ruin that little nurse you're so fond of. Ice flooded his veins. Valerie smirked. Hospital administration takes ethics very seriously. A nurse becoming romantically involved with a vulnerable patient? That's a career ender. Adrian's voice turned lethal. You're bluffing. Try me. Lillian's choice. Lillian was in the break room when the email arrived. Subject, formal complaint. Professional misconduct. Her hands shook as she read the words. Inappropriate attachment to a patient. Violation of ethical boundaries. Lillian. She turned. Adrian stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on a cane, his face pale with pain and fury. You shouldn't be up, she whispered. He limped forward, gripping the counter for balance. Valerie filed a complaint against you. She swallowed hard. I know, I won't let her do this. It's too late. Lillian forced a smile. I've already requested a transfer. Pediatrics. His cane clattered to the floor as he grabbed her wrist. No, she pulled away. You have a company to save. I won't be the reason you lose it. You think I give a damn about the company right now? His voice cracked. Lillian's resolve wavered. But then she remembered the email, the cold certainty in Valerie's eyes. Some fights, she said softly, you can't win. The breaking point. That night, Adrian lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He had spent his life believing in control, in winning. But now, he was losing everything. His company, his dignity, her. The door creaked open. Lillian slipped in, her scrubs rumpled from a double shift. You're supposed to be gone, he said hoarsely. She sat beside him. I couldn't leave without saying goodbye. The words shattered him. He reached for her, his hand cradling her face. Don't go. Her breath hitched. Adrian, I heard you, he whispered, every night. You were the only thing that kept me sane. If you walk away now, I'll break. A tear slipped down her cheek. He kissed it away, his lips brushing her skin like a vow. I'll fix this, he promised. But I need you to fight with me. For the first time, she leaned into his touch. The hospital chapel was empty at 3 a.m. Lillian sat in the back pew. Her fingers trembling around the flash drive Oliver had slipped her during shift change. Valerie's been moving money through shell companies, he'd whispered. This proves it. She should have turned it over to administration. Should have walked away like she promised. But then she remembered Adrian's voice in the dark. Fight with me. The plan. Adrian's penthouse had been empty since the accident. Dust sheets covered the furniture like ghosts. You shouldn't be here, Oliver hissed, as Adrian limped to his home office. The board thinks you're still in recovery. Good. Adrian powered up his computer, wincing as his healing ribs protested. Let them underestimate me. Lillian inserted the flash drive. Files exploded across the screen. Wire transfers, offshore accounts, forged signatures. Jesus, Oliver breathed. She stole 20 million? Adrian's jaw tightened, and framed me for it. A document blinked on screenboard meeting minutes where Valerie claimed he had authorized the transfers pre-accident. Lillian's stomach dropped. This is enough to send her to prison. Adrian met her gaze. Or get your nursing license reinstated. Knock at the door froze them all. Valerie's endgame. The condo door burst open. Valerie stood flanked by security, her smile venomous. I knew you'd come here. Lillian instinctively stepped between her and Adrian. Adorable. Valerie tossed a folder. On the desk, Nurse Hayes' termination papers. Signed by the hospital board this morning. Adrian surged forward. You bitch? Ah? Valerie tapped her phone. One call and I release these to the press. The screen showed photos. Lillian holding Adrian's hand, brushing his hair, leaning close. All taken through his hospital room. Window. Nobody will believe a gold-digging nurse over me, Valerie purred. Lillian's vision swam. She'd known this was coming. Yet Tadrian laughed. The sound was so unexpected, Valerie blinked. "You're right," he said casually. "Photos are damning." He pulled his own phone from his pocket. "Video is worse." The screen showed Valerie whispering to the hospital CFO, "Make sure Kane never gets those financials." Oliver whistled. "That's conspiracy to commit fraud." Valerie's face went white. The fallout 48 hours later, the Wall Street Journal. Headline blared. Context CEO cleared in $20 million scandal. Ex-fiancé arrested. Lillian watched from the hospital cafeteria as the news played on TV, Valerie being led. Away in handcuffs, Adrian standing tall at a press conference, announcing his full return as CEO. She turned off the screen. Her transfer to pediatrics started today. Leaving without saying goodbye? She spun. Adrian stood in the doorway. No cane, no wheelchairs, just him, in a tailored suit, his eyes blazing. "You won," she whispered. "I don't care about winning." He stepped closer. "I care that you left. Work." Throat tightened. "I crossed lines. I broke rules, you saved me." His hands framed her face. "Not just my company. Me." The cafeteria erupted in applause. Nurses, orderlies, even Dr. Torres, grinning by the coffee machine. Lillian flushed. "They're watching. Good." Adrian dropped to one knee. The room gasped. "Marry me?" His voice shook. "Not for business. Not. For show. Because I heard your voice in the dark, and it was the only thing that mattered." Somewhere a nurse started crying. Lillian's knees gave out. She caught herself on his shoulders. "Miss!" The scent of white roses filled the rooftop garden of St. Mary's Hospital. Not the expensive imported kind Adrian used to buy for corporate galas, but the simple, fresh ones Lillian had brought him every Monday in room 312. She stood beneath. An arch of ivy and baby's breath, her dress the color of cream, her hair loose around her shoulders. No veil, no diamonds. Just her? Adrian's hand shook as he took hers. "You're supposed to wait at the altar," she whispered. "I've waited long enough." The judge cleared his throat, amused. Around them, their odd little family smiled. Welliver, grinning like a fool, Dr. Torres dabbing her eyes. Even the night shift janitor, who'd smuggled in Adrian's coffee during rehab. "Do you, Adrian Kane?" "Yes." Lillian laughed. The sound undid him. "And do you, Lillian Hayes?" "Yes, always yes." He kissed her before the judge finished speaking. The cheers of their friends, the distant honking of city traffic. The hum of the hospital below, of it mattered. Only this. Only her. 3 months later, the penthouse was different now. Warmer, Adrian stood at the same floor-to-ceiling windows where he'd once coldly calculated mergers. Watching Lillian curl up on their couch with a medical journal. "You're staring," she said without looking up. "I like the view." She tossed a pillow at him. He caught it, a finka sound that still surprised him. His phone buzzed. Oliver's name flashed. Board's pushing for the Singapore expansion. "They want you on the flight Monday." Adrian typed one word. "No." Lillian peered at him. "Work crisis. They'll survive." He knelt beside her, pressing a kiss to her stomach where their child grew. "I have more important meetings." Her eyes softened. "You'd really give up Singapore for morning sickness and swollen feet?" "I'd give up everything," he said simply. And for the first time in his life, Adrian Kane knew he already had. 5 years later, the old hospital room was a shrine. Now room 312 preserved exactly as it had been, right down to the scratched plastic chair where Lillian had read. The alchemist to a man who couldn't hear her, except he had. Dad. Hope drew on the walls. Adrian turned as his 4-year-old daughter barreled into him, her hands covered in marker. Behind her, her twin brother trailed guiltily, clutching a stolen Sharpie. Lillian sighed. "They're your genes." Adrian hoisted both children onto his hips, ignoring the way his scar ached. "And your stubbornness?" A nurse knocked gently. "Mr. Kane?" The dedication ceremony starts in 5. Downstairs, the new Kane Hayes neurorehabilitation wing glittered with donors and press. But Adrian lingered, staring at the bed where he'd once lain helpless. Regrets? Lillian threaded her fingers through his. He kissed her palm. Just one. She raised an eyebrow. I wish I'd woken up sooner. Wait. Their laughter echoed through the halls as they walked toward the future together. Epilogue. Wait. The note on the nightstand in room 312, beneath the vase of white roses, a single sheet of paper rests, for the next person who waits here in the dark, you are not alone. Love the man who came back.